It's easy to tell moderate Muslims from the extremists. The extremists say if you insult Islam, we will hunt you down and kill you. The self-declared moderates merely say, if you insult Islam, we will hunt you down and destroy your life. Now, I wish this was some fanciful hypothetical, but regrettably it's not. This is actually what Dawahfilms is doing, or trying to do to me. Thankfully, as with so many who promote Islam by one route or another, their degree in Islamic studies with a minor in reading the entrails of a slaughtered chicken render their goals more aspirational than operational. For instance, he hopes by writing to the university where he thinks that I work, to the staff, to the students, to the co-workers, committees and so on, that he will ruin me. Well, that's not going to happen on several levels. Firstly, the details he's got are wrong, to the point where he has zero chance of getting me fired. Secondly, does he really think that a university would base its hiring and firing policy on this sort of childish, vitriolic, untruth-telling marathon, of which this is merely a sample?
I mean, what? Your last relationship was with a coke-snorting bisexual who eventually left you for another woman. Damn! Damn! I mean, you couldn't even keep the relationship for more than 2 blog TV sessions. So, Mr. 40-year-old virgin, how can you sit there and say that you disrespect a woman for wearing something on her head because she feels more dignified that way and she wants to follow her beliefs, but for some reason you can respect the druggie just because she might put out? Well, we see where your priorities are, right?
Thirdly, of course, the arguments stand on their merits. This has already been through the open forum of ideas on YouTube, where people roundly thought that this guy was a whiny and very angry pussy with a overinflated ego and a penchant for playing the professional victim. Then, of course, when he complained to YouTube, they saw right through these victimhood antics. He then tried to take this to the legal arena, where they laughed at him. You know, you really can't sue people for saying something that's evidently true. I mean, really, what in the name of the paedophile prophet makes him think that academics would come to any other conclusion? Really, it's baffling. It's almost like a child running from parent to parent, hoping against reality that one of them's suddenly going to say, yeah, sure, now it's a good thing that you play with matches when mummy and daddy ain't home. This all brings back echoes of P.Z. Myers dealing with that other religion heavy on sex with children, the Catholic Church, demanding that they fire P.Z. Myers for desecrating a communion wafer. Yet they use all the same language that you did. And all that it did was at the end of the day show that P.Z. was right. It's just a wafer, and he's under no more obligation to respect the belief that magical incantations will turn it into celestial zombie flesh than I am to respect the idea that your religion gives you a mandate to kill people.
As mandated in the Quran, and the true interpretation of the Sharia that all true Muslims and the majority of the Muslims in the world share. We Muslims, the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our non-Muslim allies, will send you to the God that you wish you knew.
And no self-respecting university would chastise its staff for voicing such an opinion, let alone on the privacy of their own home or on their own blog. Finally, of course, in the contract I recently negotiated with my employer, we agreed that I would spend half of my time working for them, half of my time making YouTube videos, with the intention that I would pull in enough money off donations, which has thus far proved the only thing that can pull in living salary type money. It was in the contract. And of course it goes without saying that they wanted me to work full time. It's just that I stated and they agreed that the YouTube stuff has value and is worth pursuing. But like I say, while his ability to target my career because I have no respect, none whatsoever, for his beliefs that the psychotic ramblings of some desert dweller were actually communications from a god, his ability to target my career over that is as likely to be as effective as his prayers to this ancient desert genie. But it's the aspirations that I find unsettling. You see, way back when I was in contact with the FBI about death threats, not Dawahfilms, of course, we could all say he was a hapless loser at the time, but real death threats. They filled me in with how these terrorist things usually shake down. You see, self-declared moderates like Dawahfilms and Hamza here.
Well, yeah, if someone's going to fight against the community here, they should be...
they should be stoned to death, yes?
No, that's not the punishment.
What is the punishment?
From my understanding, it may be limited, it's actually beheading.
Beheading. And you're comfortable with that?
Well, you don't feel any pain with it, that's the first thing.
Great enablers of terror. And it was because of people like this that folks like Molly Norris had to change their identity and go into hiding. You see, folks like Dawahfilms sit there and say, I'm only broadcasting her personal details such that other Muslims can voice the concerns that they have to her family, her friends, co-workers and employers, just to tell them how bigoted and offensive her views are. Yeah, it's all the most benign and innocent intent. Well, by Muslim standards anyway. But what's really happening here, either incidentally or by intent, is advertisement of targets for sleeper cells and lone wolves, for which there is essentially no defence. And it's for reasons like that folks like Molly Norris had to change their identity and go into hiding. And come on, you all know this. The craziest of the creationists, folks like Venom Fangax and Ray Comfort, both have had my personal details at one point or another, and never have either of them said, well, you said some nasty things about the creationism in which I believe, so I'm going to hunt you down and try and ruin your life. And that's the point. Moderate Islam is a couple of orders of magnitude past the worst creationists, even past the nastiest of Scientologists. But if no one holds the line, then the line is lost. And if you allow yourself to be terrorized into retreat merely because the odd person gets killed or threatens to ruin your career or advertises your personal details, then the religion that does this the most wins, which in this case just happens to be Islam. For me, this is a never compromise type issue. I understand that this is no longer a risk-free environment, with folks like Dawahfilms and allies out there, inspired by their religion, having real aspirations to cause real-life harm of one sort or another to myself. You do realise that if we find out it's the end for Thunderfoot, the moment we find out where he teaches, but not one step backwards, not one iota will I yield to the religion that uses intimidation to silence its critics, for to do so would merely embolden the bottom feeders. Thus I stand, defiant to the last, which I suspect, with the continued and necessary support of those who advocate this zero-tolerance stance to these religious gangsters, is going to be a long time yet.